Hi everyone, this is Edward Quintero from Mold3D. After months and months of planning, we finally have our first resin kit. We finally released our first product that was designed by the awesome concept artist Brett Bean and 3D modeled by the equally awesome and talented Matt Thorup. Today I'm going to be showing you guys how I assembled the resin kit and put together the parts using various type of glues, and also equally important, how I cleaned the parts to prepare them for painting, which we're not going to do today, but it's still part of the process, so I wanted to go over that. These are the parts that we're going to have to put together in order to assemble it. So this is kind of like more of a guide for you guys to use. So before we get started, I wanted to say a couple words about why we wanted to create a resin kit in the first place. At Mold3D, we talk a lot about 3D printing and 3D modeling and design, but we wanted to walk the walk. We wanted to create our own product and go through the trial and error, learn our lessons and just experience the whole process from design to 3D modeling to prototyping and manufacturing, and even marketing a product and selling a product and working with designers and so on. So this has definitely been an amazing experience for us, and we hope to keep doing more. Okay, so let's get started on talking about how to clean your resin parts. It's really important that you clean your parts before you paint or even glue them together, because during the manufacturing or molding casting process, they use what's called mold release. Basically, you want to get rid of it and you want to get it off your resin, and luckily it's not something that's really hard to do. Any kind of everyday dishwashing solution will work. In my case, I like to use something called Simple Green that you could find at a local grocery store or Home Depot, that sort of place. So here I'm basically eyeballing some solution with water, and I immediately just take my parts and I dip them in, swishing them around to get any of the excess mold release off the resin parts. And afterwards, just take your other parts and basically repeat the process. Then just let them sit in the container and soak in the Simple Green or dishwasher solution for about 30 minutes to an hour. Next, I take it to my sink and I rinse off the excess soap duds with a soft toothbrush. I go through every little nook and cranny, just making sure that you get all the excess soap off and any residue or mold release that might still be on the parts. And then just go through every single part and just do the same thing. Afterwards, I take a soft cloth and just rub off the water so it dries faster. And then if you have one of those air canisters of compressed air, it's a really good tool that will help the water dry a lot quicker from those cracks. Otherwise, it's going to take forever. Okay, so now we're ready to actually start assembling the piece. I'm using Formula 560 glue, which is a canopy glue, and it's good for the clear resin parts. In this resin kit, we have both clear and gray colored resin parts. The reason we want to use this type of glue is because if you use something else like crazy glue, or in our case zappa gap glue, which I'm using for the other parts, if you use it on the clear parts, it's going to discolor them. So this Formula 560, even though it's white, it will dry clear or transparent, and it doesn't have the chemical reaction that will cause a discoloration on the clear parts. So as you can see, I'm using a toothpick to add the glue around the helmet, being very careful not to add too much glue. It's a lot harder than it looks, and in my case, I probably went a little overboard in some cases, but it's okay because I could any excess glue that spills out off the lens, I could always go with a wet soft cloth and actually clean it off. So being very careful to press in the clear lens on the actual helmet. These are very small parts. It's pretty tricky to actually get them on perfect. But with a little trial and error and practicing beforehand, that's an important step that I had to take, is actually making sure that all the parts fit before I ended up putting the glue. So now that I have the two lenses, I'm working on the next section, which is the spotlight piece that goes on top of the helmet. and covering the sides and the back plate of the spotlight, I gently press it in. Again, this white glue will dry clear, so I don't have to worry too much about the white part in this case. Now I'm using a Zappa Gap glue, which is similar to Crazy Glue. It dries super quick, so I have to be very careful to make sure that I have the right orientation going in. As you could see in my first attempt, I went in the wrong direction. I kind of freaked out thinking I wasn't going to be able to take it back out. So you have to be very quick, otherwise you're going to get literally stuck on there and you're not going to be able to take it out. Here I am adding the little handle on the side of the helmet. Just press it right in. Be careful to not get it on your hands. I'm wearing protective latex gloves because this is like Crazy Glue and it will stick to your hands. So you don't want to get this stuff on your hands. It'll be hard to take off. Okay, now moving on to the parts of the weapon. The weapon has these clear parts that stick off the side of the gun, and basically they have to be fitted into these little rings that then stick onto the side. I actually marked the orientation of the clear part with the ring to make sure that once I had the glue, I wasn't going to have to mess around with it and know what kind of angle I had to come in with. So first here I'm adding again the Formula 560 for the clear part to adhere to the side of the ring. And once this dries, I'll use the Zappa Gap to stick on the rim to the actual weapon. So being very careful, I slide it in and press it in and just keep it in position until I could get some kind of hold and let the glue dry enough so that it won't move around. Otherwise, this clear part is kind of just moving around in there. Then I had some excess glue that went off to the side, so I take just a wet cloth and just gently dry off the glue on the clear part that's exposed. Okay, so now I have two other parts that are very similar, except they're smaller and they're a little harder to handle. So very carefully, I'm figuring out the orientation that these things go in before I add the glue. Now adding the glue with a toothpick. This is a very small part, so I definitely recommend using something small like a toothpick to actually add the glue. It helps a lot. It also helps you to not add too much glue, which in some of these parts I made the mistake of not using the toothpick, and I ended up using a little bit too much glue, which could be a headache, especially the Zappa Gap Crazy Glue type of glue. It could cause problems because if it cures and dries, then you're going to get this shiny specular surface to the resin that's going to be really hard to take off. So here I am just gently pressing in the parts, making sure they're snugly fit. And it doesn't really take much. The Zappa Gap glue it dries within like 10 seconds. So again, repeating the process of adding the canopy glue, the white glue, for the clear resin parts, and just fitting them in. You can see that little black mark I did on purpose to make sure that when I went in and actually inserted the pieces that they're going in the right direction. The glue is not that forgiving. The Crazy Glue type of glue is not forgiving, so if you go in on the wrong direction and it starts drying, you might have a hard time taking it back out. So now I'm repeating the process for the bigger clear resin part on the backhand, the back side of the gun, and gently pressing it in and making sure that it's snugly fit. Okay, so I have the gun completed. So now it's time to connect it to the body. We have two insertion points, one at the handle on the left hand and one on the handle on the back hand. And this resin kit is pretty, the way that this was constructed came out pretty good. So even without the glue, it actually kind of snaps in there pretty good. But you want to make sure that you have a secure bond. So every little slot, I'd make sure to add the glue. Okay, and being careful not to add too much. Everything looks good, and let's go ahead and snap these pieces in. As I mentioned, luckily these come in pretty easy, so there's not too much danger of having to take them back out and making a mess with the crazy glue or Zappa gap glue. I'm just gonna say crazy glue from here on out because it's a lot easier to say. But it's not crazy glue, the brand. It's just a type, the same. It's a similar type of glue. So here we have the actual base with all the parts inserted. I wanted to check out the orientation and the layout before I actually started the gluing process. Some of the mushrooms that insert in actually have to go in at a certain angle, so I wanted to make sure I knew what I was doing before I added this crazy glue, Zappa Gap type glue. Okay, so actually went a little overboard here, and the glue spilled out. So that's a learning lesson for me, and if you're new to this, to you as well. Be careful to not add too much glue. So I went back to my toothpick here, which is a safer route. It ensures that I don't add that much glue. This stuff is pretty. You don't need that much of it. So no need to go crazy and add, you know, enough that when you press in the little pegs that the glue goes and spills, which is what happened to some of my pieces here. So going back to the toothpick and just adding sparingly the glue, and you know, these guys actually fit in pretty tightly without any glue anyhow, so you just really need the glue for it to create that bond so that doesn't come off later. This particular mushroom piece actually has a bottom and a top part. So there's a little peg that helps the top part insert into the bottom part. And so I'm adding a little bit of glue on this piece. These are the evil mushrooms with the little teeth. They're pretty cute. Okay, so here we go. Here's the whole base with all the mushrooms in. And now it's time to insert the body. The body's pretty easy. It has these pegs that were constructed into or attached and inserted into the actual resin kit. So it's it goes in pretty nicely, and it's really tight. So the glue, again, is just a guarantee, so you know it doesn't accidentally come apart. So being careful not to bump into the mushrooms. These guys just go straight in, so locking them into place. And here we go. Everything feels pretty good. It's looking pretty cool. All right, so now it's time to add the head. Same procedure, just using a toothpick to add the Zappa Gap glue around the peg. And a little bit inside the hole as well. And now we will insert the head into the slot here. And the head's a little loose, so I just had to, you know, make sure that I had the proper angle that I want and kind of hold it in there until the glue starts to dry and stick. So now I'm adding the wire that sticks from the backpack on her back to the gun. Again, using a toothpick to just add to these little pegs here. They're really tiny, so you really don't need anything, you know, aside from just a little bit of glue. And they come in pretty nicely. Now onto this part here. Same thing. And insert it into the back of the gun. This wire or cable is pretty light. It doesn't take a lot of force to stick it in, so I decided to leave that till the very end. And now I'm attaching a wire that goes into the top of the backpack. And that is our last piece. We are completely done. Looks awesome. Doing the 360. So that's it. Thanks for hanging out with me for the past 15 minutes or so. I'm assuming that you probably bought the maquette if you stuck around. If you haven't and you're interested in taking a look, check it out at shop.mole3d.com. Thanks again for hanging out, and hope to see you again real soon. Peace out.